Hi there, and welcome. If you're a tutor in adult education here in the UK, you already know your classrooms are these amazing melting pots of language and life experience. In this explainer, we're going to flip the script on how we see our multilingual learners. We're moving from seeing their first language as a barrier to seeing it as the incredible bridge that it really is. So let's get started. And this quote from UNESCO really gets to the heart of it all. Language isn't just a bunch of words, right? It's who we are. It's our culture, our identity, and our power. And keeping that idea front and center can totally transform how we teach and, more importantly, how our learners succeed.
All right, so before we jump into strategies, let's just take a moment and get real about the context. We need to understand the unique world our adult learners are coming from.
Many of the adults that walk through your door might be struggling with functional literacy skills. And some research even shows that dyslexia can be more common in these groups. But here's the big one. A lot of them carry some real anxiety from bad experiences at school in the past. This means that creating a safe, respectful space isn't just a nice to have, it's absolutely essential. It's the foundation where learning can even begin. Okay, so keeping all of that in mind, we get to the core idea of this whole explainer. What if a learner's first language, their L1, isn't a problem to be solved? What if it's the very bridge they need to cross to learn English?
So think of it like this. There are two paths. On the left, you've got this old-school subtractive model, where the goal is for English to just replace their home language. That approach can really hinder learning, and honestly, it can crush their self-esteem. But on the right, that's where we want to be, the additive model. This is where English adds to their first language. Their L1 becomes a resource, a tool. This boosts confidence and leads to some pretty amazing cognitive benefits.
So this is our goal, additive bilingualism. The key word there is additive. We're not replacing anything. We are enriching, adding on, and building upon the amazing foundation that our learners already have. Now, to really embrace this whole additive idea, it helps to kind of geek out for a minute on how language acquisition actually works. Let's break down a couple of key concepts that are just super useful for any tutor to have in their back pocket. First up, you've got BICS. You can think of this as coffee shop English. It's the casual, social language you need to have a chat or buy something at the store. Learners often pick this up pretty fast, which is great, but, and this is so important, it's just the surface. Because lurking right below that surface is CALP. And this is the deep stuff. This is the academic language of the classroom. It's what you need to read a textbook, to understand complex instructions, to think in abstract ways. So a learner can have fantastic BICS and still be working really hard to build their CALP. So you might be wondering, how long does it take to develop that deeper academic language? Well, get this. The research suggests it can take 5 to 7 years. This is such a crucial reminder for us to be patient. That learner who's super chatty in the break room might still need a ton of support with those academic tasks. All right, let's talk about English specifically for a second. We have to be honest with ourselves. Our spelling system, what linguists call orthography, is, well, it's a beast. It's famously complex. And that's not a flaw. It's just a feature we have to understand to help our learners master it. This table really paints a picture, doesn't it? Languages like Spanish are transparent. What you see is pretty much what you say. But English is over there in the opaque column. It's deep. One sound can be spelled in a bunch of different ways. But you know what? That complexity is also what makes it so rich, and it's part of why it's become a global language. To put a number on it, just think about this. English has about 44 distinct sounds, or phonemes. But we use over 120 different letter combinations to write those sounds down. Now imagine you're a learner whose first language is way more straightforward. That is a huge mental puzzle to solve. And this is where it gets really interesting. This language challenge doesn't just stay in the literacy class. The skills you need to process language have this powerful, hidden connection to, believe it or not, maths. Let me show you how this plays out. So let's walk through a quick little 3-step challenge. I guarantee you have seen some version of this in your own classroom a million times. We'll start with just the number. Step 1. You put this on the board, 15 plus 23. Pretty simple, right? Most of your learners can look at that, they know what to do, and they can figure out the answer, no problem.
But now watch what happens. It is the exact same math, but we've wrapped it up in a word problem. And all of a sudden, for some of our learners, this just got way harder. So what gives? Why is that?
It comes down to a skill called phonological processing, which is just a fancy way of saying how our brain works with the sounds in a language. If that skill is a bit weak, it doesn't just affect reading. To solve this problem, a learner has to read the words, decode them, hold them in their working memory, figure out what to do, and then do the math. The cognitive load is just immense. It's a perfect example of how literacy and numeracy are totally connected. Okay, so we've talked about the context and the theory. Now let's get to the most important part, the practical stuff. What can you actually do in your classroom, like tomorrow, to put all this into action?
Here's your toolkit. First, and this is huge, you've got to truly value their entire linguistic and cultural background. See their first language as the strength it is. Encourage them to use it, to make connections between what they already know in their L1 and what they're learning in English. Use teaching methods that are multi-sensory and systematic to hit all the different ways people learn. And above all, remember this is a marathon, not a sprint. Focus on that long-term, person-centered growth.
You know, all these strategies, all of this reframing, it's all pointing in one direction. It's all driving towards one single, incredibly important goal.
And this is it. The ultimate goal isn't just about passing a test, it's about fostering learning confidence. For so many of our adult learners, the biggest barrier isn't grammar or vocabulary, it's the fear and anxiety left over from the past. When we celebrate their strengths, and that includes their multilingualism, we help them tear down that wall of fear so they can finally truly learn.
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Your learners are walking into your classroom with a superpower. Seriously, their ability to navigate more than one language, to live in more than one culture, that is an incredible strength. So, how will you unlock the superpower of multilingualism in your classroom?